Hello, YouTube. This is Johnny again. It is still Tuesday, April the 18th. It is now 7:03 at night. I'm down in the lower level, which you all know from watching my videos is where our main library is, our book collection. And I thought my wife left us tonight to, she has a women's ministry meeting. She is she's the head of education, women's education in her church, and I don't feel like reading. I'm kind of tired. I had weird dreams all night, and I'm kind of still tired from those dreams. And I thought, I told you in my video this morning, I have piles of used books I've gotten from all different kinds of places, and I decided what I'm going to do is just say this is a used book haul. I'm not going to really, some of them I've mentioned that in our library where here in Holland, I volunteer at the used bookstore, the Book Nook, and they've been going through the withdrawing, taking books out of circulation, and I look through them and I find things, and I go to thrift stores, and we went to Grand Haven last week and Cheap Stacks, and I bought some. I think I showed those. I think I showed you the cheap stack books. Would I say cheap stacks? Anyway, I'm just going to show you, and I'll try to remember where I got them. This I got at Blue Stockings bookshop here in Holland. This is by Julian Fellowes, Society Rules, 2 novels, Snobs and Past Imperfect. He is known for his PBS series. Oh, I can't remember now. My mind just went blank. But he writes for that PBS series. Oh, my mind just went absolutely blank. Oh, Downton Abbey. There it is. Downton Abbey. I used to watch it years ago. Stopped watching it, but he is the writer for Downton Abbey. He's a British writer. And then this is a library withdrawal from our library. Story of the Jews, Finding the Words 1000 BC to 1492 by Simon Schama. And I already had, this is volume 1, and I had found volume 2. Now I'm not sure, at another library used book sale. This is History of the Jews, Belonging 1492 to 1900. So now I have both volumes. I collect the writings of Simon Schama, and he's one of my, I have a whole shelf of his books and highly recommend him. He's a very interesting writer. And then I picked this up at Blue Stockings for 50 cents. Eastern Europe in the 20th Century and After by R.J. Crampton. I read a lot on Eastern Europe, like Romania, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Poland, country. So it looked interesting, so I grabbed it for 50 cents at Blue Stockings. This is a library withdrawal book, In the Shadow of the Sword, The Birth of Islam and the Rise of the Global Arab Empire by Tom Holland. Tom Holland is a very well-known historian. I have his book, The Rubicon, and I have other books by him in my library. I think he also wrote The Rubicon, Persian Fire, The Forge of Christendom. But this is his book, The Shadow of the Sword, Birth of Islam, the Rise of Global Arab Empire. I collect books on Theodore Roosevelt, and this was a library withdrawal. Let the People Rule, Theodore Roosevelt, and the Birth of the Presidential Primary by Jeffrey Cowan. I got this from my Theodore Roosevelt collection. This is at Blue Stockings. This was a I think it was only 50 cents. Michael Fulbert, Hermeneutics of the Subject, Lectures at the College of de France, 1981 to 1982. I collect his writings. I just got into this collecting them. These are his lectures, and it's only, I think it was only 50 cents, so I grabbed it at Blue Stockings bookshop here in Holland. This is a library withdrawal. This is the painter Chagall. He's very famous for these kinds of paintings, almost childlike. You've seen his paintings. These are like a biography and an overview of his works. This cost me $3, but he's one of my favorite painters. I got these yesterday. I got these at the Book Nook yesterday. Poetry by Ann Sexton, the Death Notebooks. I collect her, my favorite poets. This is James Tate, Worshipful Company of Fletchers. Another poetry by James Tate, who I collect. And Denise Levertov, Sands of the Well. I can't pronounce her name, but I collect her poetry, Sands of the Well. This is a biography that came into the Book Nook on Chesterton by Maisie Ward. K Chesterton. This is a biography on him. He was a churchman, a journalist. He wrote the Father Brown series. I got this at the Book Nook yesterday. Civil Rights Queen, Constance Baker Motley, and the Struggle for Equality by Tomiko Brown-Nagin. I collect books on the civil rights, the 60s, and I picked this up for $2. I got this at the Book Nook yesterday. It was $3, but I like the history of gardens. And this is the Gardens of Persia by Penelope Hobhouse. I just really like reading about gardens, romantic gardens, Victorian gardens. And these are all about the gardens in Persia. This is an old library withdrawal book, and it goes into Islamic history, and it looks really interesting. So, the Gardens of Persia. I got this at the Blue Stockings. This is a vintage contemporaries. I collect these with these special kind of covers from the 80s. This is by Gloria Naylor, Mama Day. She was a African-American writer. There's a picture of her in the back. I just collect. It's only 50 cents. I got this at the Book Nook, Reporting Vietnam, American Journalism, 1959 to 1975. There's some Hunter S. Thompson in here, Mary McCarthy, Tom Wolfe, Ward S. Just, Tom Buckley, Doris Kearns, Stephen Aesop. Just on the Vietnam. This more goes into my 60s collection, anti-war movement, the 1960s. I got this at the Blue Stockings bookshop here, From the Tree to Limerick, Historical Studies on the Sign and Interpretation by Alberto Eco. This is also 50 cents. I was kind of reluctant to get it because it's underlined, and I don't like underlined books. But I was looking through this, and it looked really interesting. And also there was an essay, The Use and Interpretation of Medieval Texts. There was a chapter on Kabbalism. They just look at the history of language, development of language. I don't know. And plus, I collect Umberto Eco's writings, mostly his novels, but I try to collect his academic works too. Got this from the Book Nook. This is We Are Here, We Are Still Here, the American Indian Movement, a photographic history of the American Indian movement, like from the 70s. And I'm really into the American Indian movement and Native Americans and indigenous people. And it's a photographic history of the American Indian movement. And so I got this for my library. This I bought at the Book Nook for $3, The Treasury of St. Francis Assisi. This is put out by the New York Museum. It's more like a catalog, but it has, all about St. Francis Assisi, paintings and religious medieval manuscripts, and all dealing with St. Francis Assisi. So I picked this up for $3. I got this at the library, Withdrawal, Cairo, Histories of the City by Nazar el-Saad. So it's on the Egypt, Cairo, its history. I collect books on the histories of cities, London, Paris, New York, San Francisco, any major city, especially ancient cities. And Cairo is a very ancient city, so I picked this up. This is another book I got, Library Withdrawal, The Storied City, The Quest for Timbuktu, and the Fantastic Mission to Save Its Past by Charles English. I've always been interested in the Timbuktu, that and this is like the history of it. This is another library withdrawal book, The Sense of Eden, a narrative of the spice trade by Charles Corn. I got this from the library, Withdrawal Life, A Brief History of Life in Victorian Britain, A Social History of Queen Victoria's Reign by Michael Patterson. I'm interested in Victorian England, so I collect books on Victorian Britain, England. And then I bought this big book on the history of London. As I told you just a minute ago, I collect books on London, history of London. This was like $2 or $3. The History of London by Stephen Inwood. So I picked this up. It's a big thing, but I read other books on the history of London, but I didn't have this one in my London collection. And today I had my therapy session, which went well. I stopped at thrift stores and I found this book, Explorer's House, National Geographic and the World It Made. It's the history of the founding of the magazine National Geographic, which I grew up as a child. My grandfather subscribed to it, and I remember as a boy looking at them, and they come into the Book Nook, and I look at them, but I don't. But this is the history of how it began to be published. And so I picked this up at a thrift store. And then I collect the writings of A.S. Blant. This is her book, The Children's Book. I have this already. I didn't know it. I have it in paperback. But it was only 50 cents. And so I thought, well, if I have it, I can always give my extra copy away. So that was pretty fast going through all those books. But like I told you, I'm a bookworm. I collect books. I collect books on London. I collect books on all kinds of subjects. I have a very wide interest, as you can tell from seeing what I just showed you in this video. I'm a bookworm. What can I help? I love books. Just look around me. And because that's my world, I mean, I read, I write, I read, I write, and what else are you going to do when you're 70 years old and the world is going crazy? I mean, you think of all the violence. The last, was it 160 mass killings since the beginning of this year? It's only going to get worse. I mean, every day when I get up in the morning, I go to the internet just to find out the latest mass killing. Now, you know, I don't remember that when I was growing up. When I grew up in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, I don't remember having 160 mass killings in 4 months. I mean, that is crazy. Now, I'm not saying America hasn't been a violent nation. I mean, we've been involved in how many wars? How about the wars against the American Indians? How about the Civil War? Slavery. Think about the Vietnam War, which we just showed. The Korean War, the Second World War, the First World War, and all the other wars, the Afghan War, it just goes on and on. But it gets kind of bad when you are afraid to send your kids to school thinking someone's going to open fire and kill your little child. You know, I don't, you know, is that normal? But it's becoming normal. It's just kind of crazy. So in order to stay sane, I come down to the book nook, or I come down here into the lower level, and I look at the books. I bought the book nook and thrift stores, and I read, I pray, and I just wait for sanity to prevail upon the American culture. But I think we've gone over the tipping. I think we've gone over the edge. I think it's only going to get worse. So I just showed you these used books so I can put them away, find the place for them down here in the lower level, and once again, thank you for your comments. Thank you for subscribing. And once again, have a good reading week. And until next time, bye.